Hello, and welcome to Right for America Issues that Unite, Don't Ignite. I am your host, Cindy Grosz, better known to you as the Jewess Patriot, but you don't have to be Jewish to be a part of our show. And today's show is a perfect example of both Jewish and non Jewish topics and Jewish and non Jewish guests that we can all relate to, have great conversations with, and take a little something from to get more educated and engaged. Don't take our freedoms for granted as proud Americans. Before we begin each and every show, as you know, I always have a disclaimer. The views shared on this show by our guests are not necessarily the views of Right for America, Cindy's Corners Productions, WGBB Radio, and the America First Warehouse, or any of the podcast outlets that feature our show. Also, many of you have asked me about how you could send me hats to wear on the show because there are so many of you that have picked up that each and every week I support a proud Jewish and or American and or Israeli company with a hat with meaning. And this week I couldn't think of a better hat than to wear from celebrity designer Mark DeFang, an award winner from New York Fashion Week, fashion designer to many beauty pageants, and has dressed many celebrities on the red carpet. And he made this for me. And I'm just so happy to continue the feeling that we all had this weekend of pride and patriotism with Memorial Weekend. And the show is going to continue that. But before we begin, many of you know I open up with my pearls of wisdom. My first guest is going to be coming on from Israel. So those pearls of wisdom are going to become later in the show. And I am just so honored to have at my first guest. Shalom Lamb is well known in the real estate world. He is also a scholar of patriotic history, and he's the co-founder of Operation Benjamin. And anybody in the Jewish world knows the name Lamb. His father, of course, and his son are both rabbis and very much involved in the world of Jewish education and culture. And he is calling us from Israel. So I want him to share a little bit about what some of you learned over the weekend through CNN, but something that everybody should be aware of about proud Jewish men and women in the military who have served and gave their lives for our country, for our freedoms, and the miraculous work he is doing. Shalom, thank you so much for joining Right for America.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Can you hear me well?
We can hear you well and we can see you well. And thanks for calling us because we know in Israel it's late at night and there are so many things to discuss. But I actually learned about the project months ago when I became the National Jewish spokesperson for America First Vets, highlighting the work of Jewish Americans in the military since the Revolutionary War. And you have done a tremendous amount of work with the those that gave their lives in World War II, the Korean War, and everything since. Maybe even, I don't know, maybe you could tell us before that. And the important work you do that's so unique around the world. So tell us about Operation Benjamin.
So, Operation Benjamin is a very unique organization. We're probably the only people who are doing this or have done this. Um, Most people don't know that during World War I and World War II, hundreds of Jewish servicemen who died in the service of our country, who were killed in action and buried in America's overseas cemeteries, were mistakenly buried under Latin crosses. And they no longer had the ability to fight for their own identity. And their families didn't know and never discovered this. And there they've been in the case of World War I for over 100 years, in the case of World War II for 80 years and more. And what we do is we work with the American Battle Monuments Commission, which is the federal agency charged with managing these incredible cemeteries, these shrines to valor. And we work hand in glove with them to find those soldiers, identify them, to prove their Jewishness and ultimately to replace their headstone from a Latin cross to a Star of David.
And there was one just the other day that actually the embassy, I believe in Italy, was busy promoting and supporting the work that you did there. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we do what are called missions, and a mission is when we change a headstone. Normally, we do a few at a time, and we went to Italy this past week, and we were fortunate enough to have Dana Bash join us for a day and a half, and that video went viral. It's absolutely extraordinary. And we dealt with three soldiers, three very heroic soldiers, three very different stories. And we changed their headstones. One was a special forces soldier who actually went on Aliyah in 1938, and his name was Ben Sion Bernstein. Another was an aviator, a soldier named Paul Singer, Second Lieutenant Paul Singer. And the third one was Private First Class Frank Kurzinger, who was a medic who was born in Germany and immigrated to the United States in 1938, and then turned around and joined the Army and was killed as a combat medic in the war. So all of them were, three of them were in the Italian campaign. You know, from the description that just gave you, they were all in very different aspects of that campaign. And these were tremendous heroic soldiers. And two of them, we did the ceremonies at the Sicily Rome American Cemetery near Nettuno. Nettuno, you know, is near Anzio Beach, which was the great amphibious landing of the Italian campaign. And the other one was in the Florence American Cemetery, at a magnificent, all magnificent cemeteries, and just had very, very special ceremonies. Their families were all there. Each one had family there. In the case of Paul Singer, they had about six people off the top of my head. Benzion Bernstein had six. And Frank Kurzinger came from a very tiny family because most were killed in the Holocaust because he was from Germany. We had two family members there. So it
That's
was just
incredible.
extraordinary. Really an
Such an.
amazing,
How did you get
amazing experience.
started in this? It's not something you just, the average person would think in their heads, oh, I want to just find, the military that were buried as Christians and they're really Jewish. And Jewish law is very strict about burial. And people who aren't religious don't really understand that there's a lot of laws involved. So this is very, not only is this very unique, but there's a lot of religious law involved.
There is. The way this all began, I'd love to tell you that we identified a problem and identified a solution, and this was all done with forethought, but I'd be lying. None of that is true. This all happened when one of my co-founders, I have two co-founders, Rabbi Dr. Jacob J. Schachter and Steve Lamar. And Rabbi Schachter was leading a tour in 2014 for historians about medieval Jewish history. And while he was in the Normandy region, it was around June 6th, they wanted to visit the Normandy American Cemetery, and he had not been there before. But his father's a very, very famous World War II chaplain. He was captain and one of the liberators of Buchenwald. Very, very important period in his life and in the life, of course, of all Jews. So Rabbi Schachter had a natural proclivity to issues regarding soldiers in World War II. Well, he went to visit and he was struck by the fact that he thought there should have been more Stars of David. I have a training as a military historian. Academically, that was my training. And we've been friends for many, many years. And when he saw me a few weeks later, he said, I've just been to the Normandy American Cemetery. It's holy ground. It's hallowed. I remember this conversation like yesterday, but I thought there would have been more Stars of David. And for some reason, it just struck me like a thunderbolt. And we started working together to see, well, how many Jews should there be? And why were there fewer? So the answer is there are about 9,380 U.S. soldiers buried in Normandy. And just as a statistical fact, 2.71% of U.S. casualties were Jews. So just do quick math in your head. There should be about 230, 240 Jews buried there, Stars of David, but there aren't. When we started, there were 149, then there are 153, and there will be more. And the question was, why did that happen? How did that happen? Well, I knew nothing about genealogy, but Steve Lamar, our co-founder, knew a lot about genealogy. He's a very, very good amateur genealogist, an excellent one. And we decided to ultimately pick a soldier at random. That would be Benjamin Garadetsky, hence Operation Benjamin. And we started doing research about Benjamin Garadetsky. Turned out that He was born in Zhytomyr, Ukraine. His family moved to the Bronx. And wouldn't you know it, when his parents passed away, they were buried 10 minutes from my house in West Hempstead, Long Island. So I went on a hot date with my wife to check that out. And we realized that Gorodetsky, who's buried under a cross, was fully Jewish. How did this happen? And it took a long time to figure out how these things occurred. We ultimately did. And then we approached the American Battle Monuments Commission. All in all, from the end of our research until we got this headstone changed, it took over 2 years. But that was our first experiment with this. And then we realized, wow, the problem is bigger than just Normandy. It's it's other things. And so one thing left to another, and we realized this was a worldwide issue. And ultimately, we took it worldwide. So now we've changed, replaced headstones everywhere from the Arlington National Cemetery in Washington, D.C., to Manila, Philippines, and everywhere in between. We've been all over France, Luxembourg, Belgium, Italy. We will be in the Netherlands soon. The project has taken on a life of its own, and we've certainly struck an emotional chord. That's for sure.
And what's great
It's
about
very.
this is that
I'm sorry.
what's great about this, it's not political. It's really something that everybody could relate to. It's not a religious, non-religious. And what I have learned since becoming the spokesperson was that, people always say to me, Jews aren't in the military. We're only 2% of the population. But for the 2% of the population we have made significant donations to the military. Our achievements, our accomplishment. I mean, the reality is we would not have a 250th anniversary because George Washington was funded by three Jews who actually died broke and made like the sacrifice of all their money so that we could have our freedom today. So, I mean, I think this is so important because you are actually helping uh, demyth the fact that Jews were involved in bigger numbers than people realize and in every single war.
Cindy, I want to hone in on that point particularly. Holocaust studies are so important. They're critical in every way, and full stop. But it's only half the story. The story of Jews as victims is a very important historical fact, must be studied, must be understood. But there's another side of that coin, and that's Jews as victors, Jews as warriors, Jews as liberators. That's our job. We find those guys and we make sure they are identified, they are celebrated, they're known. And that's a very, very important thing to us. And you mentioned George Washington. I want to point out this fellow right here. His name is Everett Satius Jr., Everett Moses Satius Jr. He comes from one of the oldest, if not the oldest, Jewish family in America. His family arrived in America 5 years before George Washington was even born. And his family have fought in every single conflict in American history. Well, Everett Satius Jr. was an only child, and his great grandfather was good friends with George Washington. There's a very famous letter that George Washington writes to the Jews of Newport, Rhode Island, and to the sextant there. And that was his great grandfather. And if you'll remember the letter, it was an amazing letter by Washington that Jews will not suffer prejudice in the United States. Very famous, very important letter. Who would know that 5 generations later, an only child of that family would die very violently in the Battle of the Bulge? He's buried at the Luxembourg American Cemetery, and we were very honored to reach out to his family, wonderful people, the Satius family, and to let them know they had no idea that they had an ancestor who was buried improperly under a cross. We had a member of the Satius family there, and the Israeli ambassador there, the U.S. ambassador was there. We had about 60 people come from the United States and changed that headstone in the Luxembourg American Cemetery to a Star of David. And what made it a little more special was the fact that the most famous person buried there is George Patton. And although George Patton was a great warrior, an extraordinary person, the fact is that George Washington had a very, very terrible relationship with Jews. He was clearly very anti-Semitic. And to have us honor this Jewish soldier there was fabulous. It was really great. So something very, very special.
How can people get involved? And if anybody thinks they have family that is in the same kind of situation, how could they reach out to you?
So we're easy to get to. We have a very robust website. It's operationbenjamin.org. Operationbenjamin.org. We do not accept money from the families of the fallen, so we're entirely donor supported. It's a robust website. We have many videos, a lot of information about our soldiers, our World War II soldiers, our World War I soldiers, and very soon you'll see on our website a whole nother section called Operation Levy, which is German Jewish World War One soldiers. We just started a joint venture with the German War Graves Commission to identify the 1,100 Jews who fought for Germany in World War One, who are buried under Latin crosses, and we intend to join with them in this extraordinary venture to change every one of them and do the right thing by these German World War One soldiers.
Well, there's so much we could talk about. We're going to have you back, especially as we prepare for the 250th anniversary. I mean, people don't even realize how many Jews are in the military that faced anti Semitism. You just touched a little bit of it. Also, I always love the Jewish love stories, how so many men in the World War II went and they saw what was going on in the camps. They brought the people out and the women, and so many of them married people they saved. And
Absolutely.
and those are
Um,
great stories also.
they
And
are
there's just
great
so
stories. I'll
much.
just leave you, if I can, with some really interesting statistics. The highest, well, first of all, most people don't realize that World War II, 550,000 Jews fought on America's side in that war. That's pretty extraordinary, and approximately 11,000 were killed. Um, Also, the most decorated armored officer in American history was a Jewish officer, and the highest ranking soldier, American soldier, killed by enemy fire in the European theater was a Jewish soldier. These are all things that we should be very proud about. We should recognize we have a long and wonderful connection to the military, something to be very, very proud of. Jews as warriors is a story that starts with King David, and it goes through our days through the IDF, but it made a major stop in the United States of America. We need to be very proud of that.
Shalom Lamb, thank you so much for staying up late, joining us from Israel. We didn't even touch on anything going on in Israel. It was Yom Yerushalayim yesterday,
Yep,
and I know in New York I celebrated. I'm sure you did in Israel. We look
sure.
forward to having you back and working together.
Cindy, we'll do it again. Thanks a million. Be well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Before my next guest comes on, I was starting to say if you want to send me hats or get involved in the Promote Your Hat patriotic businesses, small businesses, avoid the tariffs, you name it, support Israel, you can reach out to me through the America First Warehouse or through Cindy Grosz social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. And I believe that my next guest is waiting, so we're going to go right into it because she is really going to share with us so much going on in Washington, D.C. She's at the forefront of everything. I was lucky to work with her in the last 2020 campaign when she was working in the media team, and since then, Ashley Hayek is the executive director of America First Works, and she's also involved as engagement director for America First Policy. You see her pictures often with many of the people that are very outspoken and acting very strongly in the cabinet for our American needs, like Brooke Rollins, Linda McMahon, our own New York Lee Zeldin, so many others. I am so honored to call her friend and to have her on Right for America with the U.S. Patriot. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to join you today.
Well, I want to first wish you congratulations. 4 years you just celebrated with America First Policy. And also, you just completed a fantastic summit in DC last week. It was all over social media. You've been doing a lot of press. And most important, I'm sitting in probably the only Trump museum in the country where so much is going on, where people like Tom Holman call home when he's not in DC, Cash Patel. You look at the walls, everybody has been here. And we are your people, and we are just so happy that you're here with us because we want to hear everything upfront, direct from the person who is actually engaged in it and working with it every day.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a really exciting time at the America First Policy Institute. We have not taken a single moment, any sort of break. We just continually just keep working. Our story, I think, is extremely interesting. We were started in early 2021 by Brooke Rollins and Linda McMahon, and Larry Kudlow and a handful of others. And Brooke worked she was the head of the Domestic Policy Council in the first Trump administration and was mapping out what a second term agenda would look like. And when that second term didn't come to fruition, then she decided, there's too much good work here that needs to be done. We need to just continue this movement. And if you recall, like January 7th, 2021, a lot of people said the America First movement was completely dead. And Brooke just believed that the work that the president had done in the first administration, that his cabinet, the policies, they worked. And so, how do we take that momentum? How do we take those policies and carry them forward? And so that's how AFPI was born. Now it's been pretty amazing. In about 2022, the summer of 2022, of the very next year, we released the America First Agenda, which was our 10 policy pillar playbook. How do you save the country from the disaster that was the Biden administration? To date, within the first 100 days of the new administration, 86% of the 196 federal policies outlined in that America First agenda have now been enacted or advanced in President Trump's first 100 days, which is absolutely phenomenal. So we are completely well on our way moving forward, continuing to make sure that whether if it's an executive order, that we start codifying it in the states, that we get the same legislation through Congress, that we make sure that, when the next, hopefully not for a while, but the next America Last administration comes into office, that they can't just with a stroke of a pen undo all of the amazing work that this president has done. And one more thing I just want to note, if you look at Joe Biden's first 100 days of his administration, and of his executive orders that he signed, over 60% of the executive orders that Joe Biden signed were to undo the policies of President Trump. And so that's why making sure we have a legislative position as well is absolutely critical.
Well, I'm very partial with Linda McMahon because, as you know, my passion is education. I was always that Republican Jewish woman, actually being the whistleblower, outspoken about the corruption in our school systems. And basically, it's going to help mostly Democrats, minority, poor families in failing schools. And she's just been so great. And as a Jew, I am so honored that she's part of the team that has been fighting the college campuses like nobody else.
Well, at AFPI, and she was the chair of AFPI, we believe that parents should control their child's education and that they are the ultimate, I'm a mom, parents are the ultimate stakeholders in our children's lives and our education, not bureaucrats in government. And we have an education secretary who believes the same thing. So we need less decision making in the power of the DC bureaucrats and more concentrated at the local level in parents' hands. And that's exactly what has intended to do. And she said, President Trump said to put yourself out of a job. And we told Linda McMahon, Secretary McMahon, as soon as you do that, you can come right back to your AFPI home and we'll be excited to take you. But AFPI and AFW, we spent a huge amount of time on education opportunity and parental rights from the very beginning, and especially through 2023. We wanted students to have access to the best education regardless of their zip code. And it led to a domino effect. And AFPI started really focused in Iowa. It was met with huge success with Governor Reynolds signing the Students First Act into law. Then it led into a domino effect with 11 other states following right after that. This year, you have Tennessee and now Texas do just the same thing. So the momentum is really on the side of the parents. And it's not just education, it's, the boys and girls sports. It's making sure we're protecting our kids and making sure there's equality and fairness. And that's really what this is about.
So I'm sitting in Lee Zeldin territory. This is his home base, and you've worked closely with the secretary. Tell us what you're doing with the former congressman and our neighbor and friend.
Well, Lee Zeldin was on the board of America First Works, which is the political arm of AFPI, and we were the boots on the ground in the 2024 campaign. We were boots on the ground for the president's campaign as we focused on many Senate races, federal races. And so it was a really exciting time. We did 5.7 million voter visits at the door, talking to voters, building relationships, and Lee Zeldin was a big part of the brains behind that. Now, as you know, Administrator Zeldin is leading the EPA. He was very much involved in the MAHA Commission at the White House last week. And so it's been really amazing seeing him in this new role, taking on big issues. One issue AFPI and Administrator Zeldin have personally been involved in is the fact that Tijuana has been releasing sewage into the ocean, and it's coming up along our coastline in California. And Navy SEALs are not able to train. Our beaches are shut down in Southern California. This is something that Gavin Newsom has ignored, that leaders in Southern California, the establishment, the left that has been in charge so long in a very blue state like California, has just simply ignored. President Trump tried to address this in 2020. It wasn't, environmentally friendly enough. And now Lee Zeldin's come back, Administrator Zeldin has come back and is taking on that issue in a really big way so that our Navy SEALs can train and so that small businesses can go back to work and that, kids can go to surf camp at the Y this summer. This is a generational issue and it's something that will have a huge impact. But, Administrator Zeldin coming from a state like New York that has dealt with a lot of bureaucracy, who's ran a very aggressive campaign for governor, who then helped lead AFW on the ground and is now taking on these, really important policies in the administration. We could not be more proud of him.
Who could we look for next that we haven't heard much about that we're going to hear a lot about that you're working with? I mean, every day, I must just say, I think this administration, more than any other, every day there's news, so much news. I've never remember every day putting on the news and each headline was bigger than the next. But there are some that have done a lot already, and some are probably working quietly behind the scenes. So, which is one that you think we should be looking towards next?
Well, there's a couple folks, some that are already, pretty much in the public spotlight. One is Secretary of Veterans Affairs Doug Collins. He was AFPI's Georgia chairman, and he took a moment away from that really important work and is now leading the VA. I cannot express how important this job is. My husband is in the military, he's in the Marine Corps, he's active reserves now, and he's already seen a massive improvement within VA services. And so this is a job that is so important. America First policies help make sure that all veterans who put America first, who choose to serve our country, especially you look at, we just had Memorial Day yesterday. These are the people that we should be taking care of first. And that's exactly what Doug Collins is doing. He is so energetic. He spoke at our summit last week. He is on fire to help our veterans and to help our service members. It's absolutely phenomenal. And we owe such an unpayable debt to our veterans and service members. And he is making sure that we pay it all back to them as much as we possibly can. So keep an eye on Secretary Doug Collins. He's incredible. Another person who is pretty amazing is Michael Falkender. He's now the Deputy Treasury Secretary. I believe he has a big role in the IRS. He is incredibly brilliant when it comes to economic policy, and we're already seeing a major Great American comeback in this administration. So he's somebody that I would definitely keep an eye on. And then kind of, behind the scenes, just within AFPI, we have former Secretary David Bernhardt and Jessica Steinman, who are leading our litigation efforts. And there is so much pushback from the courts right now. I think this is where the next battle is going to be, is probably in the courtroom. So between former Secretary David Bernhardt, Jessica Hart Steinman, they're absolutely superstars. And we're doing everything we can from a litigation perspective to make sure we're defending these America First principles.
It sounds like a full plate. I don't know. You have a beautiful young family. You're always working, you're at every major event. How do you do it all? Give us the secret.
I have a great husband who's very supportive. So we have a
That
great
makes
team. AFPI is one big family. Family comes first always, and so we always make sure we prioritize things that are most important. And when you do a job that you love, it's absolutely worth fighting every step of the way. And so it's a great honor to be able to do this work.
So I have to agree with you what you said about Secretary Collins, because when I was watching some of the ceremonies and some of the news stories that weren't fake news, they were giving numbers out of the facts of how many men and women are getting involved, are signing up for all branches of the military and getting engaged. Is something that was so different under the Biden administration. The enthusiasm to stand with America, to serve their country, is unbelievable. How does that change so fast?
Well, it's restoring the culture, right? And the leadership starts at the top, and you have a president who respects our military. I mean, you look at what happened in August of 2021 with the disastrous withdrawal in Afghanistan, and now you have a Secretary of Defense, you have a Secretary of the VA, you have a Commander in Chief, and quite frankly, a Vice President who also served in the Marine Corps, who show what the military ethos is supposed to be about, who's getting rid of all of the garbage and the ridiculousness that the Biden administration was forcing into, and just really restoring what we're supposed to be focused on. You know, another great policy that was, just recently discussed by the president and our new Secretary of the Navy, John Phelan, is rebuilding our ships. We've got to get back to shipbuilding in America. And so that's going to provide jobs and opportunity, and it's going to restore our fleet. And so I just think every way you look at it, this is an administration that is beholden to the American people, not to any sort of special interest groups, not to any sort of, the neocon, big war, big contractor. This is really about what is best for the US of A. And that's what I think people are excited about. You cannot get someone to sign up to go to the military, into the military, if you think your commander in chief is going to throw you under the bus, or is going to leave you in Afghanistan, or is going to put you in a dangerous position, or you don't trust your leadership. This is just a complete change that we have, and it's absolutely amazing.
How can our audience reach out, learn more about America First Works and America First Policy?
You can go to the website, americafirstpolicy.com. We do have a number of positions that are open still that we're hiring. We've had 73 people go into the administration, which is pretty amazing. And so we've already hired about 56 people, I believe. And so we're always looking for great people who are interested in serving. And then America First Works, it's just americafirstworks.com. And there's tons of ways to get involved, to volunteer, to work, to serve. And we'd love to have anyone be a part of our team.
Ashley Hayek, thank you so much for joining Right for America. Issues that unite, don't ignite. You certainly spoke a lot about every issue that anybody with common sense should want to be a part of, which is really great that America First does not include an R or a D.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. So before we get on to our next guest, I will take a little time with my pearls of wisdom, because it is the closing of Jewish Heritage Month. And it has been a very, very touching Jewish Heritage Month for me, because I feel that I am very happy we have President Trump at the helm, that he was able to bring home the last hostage from who was taken on October 7th, Don Alexander, alive and with his family. And we have a lot more work to do to get home the bodies of Omer Nutra, Itan Chen, and the other Americans that are there. We want their bodies back, and we want all the hostages brought home. But I will tell you, having a president who has such pride in America makes a difference, being an American Jew in so many ways. However, we have a lot of work to do. Whoever is watching this and really wants America First for democracy, for stopping anti-Semitism and the hate in the streets, in the college campuses, you put on the news in the major cities and you see what's going on. And we are told the government is with us, but are they really with us? And that's the question every American Jew is asking today, walking the streets of New York, Miami, Washington. Just look what happened at the embassy with two young people, one who wasn't even Jewish. But for me, the highlight of the week has to be that on Friday, right before my Sabbath, a group of my neighbors and I were able to meet Omer Shem Tov, who was a hostage for over 500 days, a boy of 23. Imagine how many 23-year-old boys you know. Their uh, first thoughts of them are graduating college, getting a job, going to graduate school, hanging out at the beach at a beautiful Memorial weekend, not being taken hostage for over 500 days because they are Jewish. And for me, being able to hug him, speak with him, spend time with him was pretty powerful. And that to me is how Jewish Heritage Month is going to end, with the thought of we have to be free, we have to be safe in America and all over the world. I believe our next guest is trying to come on. We might have a technical difficulty. Is he here? Okay, so the video is not working. It is audio, but it is a very special guest. It is Chaplain Colonel Jacob Goldstein. I met him at West Point at the annual Mickey Marcus Memorial event. An American Jew who actually was a hero for both America and Israel. And Colonel Goldstein is going to tell us about his many experiences serving in the military. Can you hear me? Hello? Did it go off? Hello? He's not here? Hello? Okay, we are having technical difficulties. I'm sorry for that. I don't know what happened. I hear something in my ear. Maybe he's coming back on. He's not here. I can't hear. Hello? Okay, there. In the meantime, I want to talk to you about the America First Warehouse. We started these podcasts here probably 3-4 months ago. I've been on, and I know, well, thanks to you, our audience, for sharing this through social media, because so many times, the right side doesn't always get the proper attention that we deserve. Well, anyway, this has grown so big. We now have 5 shows on Tuesdays, and we're now adding a new day. We also have an incredible lineup of events. Please go to the America First Warehouse website and see what we have. We have everything from freedom rallies to comedy shows to special guests to Studio B on Friday nights, tied with the Real America's Voice. We have so many people from the Trump administration who call this place their second home. Mainly the border czar, Tom Holman, who for so many times was here. People, if you look around the walls, you could see people like Monica Crowley and Kash Patel, and General Flynn has been here so many times. And, of course, Rudy Giuliani used to come out of here. This station is growing. Why? Because it's about you, and it's for you, and it's about the issues you care about. And like the subtitle of my show, it's about issues that unite and don't ignite. I want to tell you also about a new feature that's coming to Right for America, the last show of every month starting in July. Thanks to you and your response to the challah baking in the kitchen with Cindy, we're going to have Patriot Palettes. Patriot Palettes is going to come from my kitchen with tips on recipes that are healthy, that use many American ingredients, so you don't have to worry about those tariffs, that are things you request that are good for a simple family night to a huge gathering, however you want, plus ideas for tablescapes, ideas for where to buy goods. It's all going to come from Patriot Palettes the last Tuesday of every month at 2 o'clock from the kitchen live starting in July. I'm trying to hear if we're trying to get him on. Is he coming on? Okay, is Joe in the house? Maybe Joe the box, I think, has something he wants to share. This is what happens when it goes live. Sometimes we have some technical difficulties. I actually think I've done pretty good. I think this is the first time we had a guest not come on. But, hello? Okay. Okay, it's not coming through. So we are going to take some questions. If you have any questions, reach out to us at the America First Warehouse. I know I'm going to go through some of the emails that I've received from you guys from previous shows, and we're going to go through it from guests we've had previously. Okay, the first question I have is regarding the show where we had the Republican Jewish Coalition, and they wanted to know how they could reach out. There are many races and many primaries going on, and they want to know if they are supporting everybody who Trump is endorsing around the country. And my suggestion to you is reach out to Sam Markstein, who was the marketing director that you met, a national spokesperson for Republican Jewish Coalition. They are on the X, they are on the Instagram, and they are on Facebook. Thank you for your interest in that, because a lot of people are asking a lot of questions about what is going on in the primaries. Okay, as I go through. Okay, somebody just asked me, because we had on Moore Klein and ZOA, and they knew that I was a delegate for the World Zionist Congress. When are we going to get the results so we find out what is going on in the World Zionist Congress? I can tell you that there is no answer yet. The rumor is that we will have an answer within the next 2 weeks of the slates. It's going to be very interesting to see what goes on, because according to the AZM, the American Zionist Movement, and the World Zionist Congress, there was a record number of American voters, over double from 2020. And in October, there will be the Congress itself in Jerusalem. And the person who actually wrote to me is from another slate, and I am glad to see that we are all, regardless of what slate we're on, we're all united in our support of Zionism and Israel. I want to tell you about a couple of things that I'm going to be doing. I am going, next week happens to be a Jewish holiday, so I will not be here. There will be a special show from some other co-host of the America First Warehouse news outlets. But on June 10th, we are going to have Congressman Paul Gosar as one of our guests. And next week, I am going to be at the world premiere at the Kennedy Center of American Promise. I know so many of you have seen all the ads. You've seen the great cast. And I'm going to be red carpet, front and center, and I'm going to be bringing to you some highlights from the red carpet and interviews with some of the people from the movie, and also the writer, Michael Medved, And we are going to also have coming up, we are going to have, I am going to be some congressional meetings. We are going to have some more congressmen. People want to know what is going on around the country. And we have the very serious question, how are we going to secure the House and secure the Senate in 2026? It is not too soon to start thinking about it and getting involved. My suggestion is contacting your local GOP and conservative um, committees, find out who they're supporting and endorsing, find out if there are primaries. Yes, primaries are healthy, they are expensive, they are time consuming, but it is part of the American dream to have primaries. It is extremely important to get involved in 2026. Yes, the big, beautiful bill passed, but it barely passed. And now it has to go through the Senate and then back to the Congress with changes from the Senate. We should not have this. This should be common sense. So thank you for your question. Oh, I just got a text. What is going on in the New York City mayoral race? Well, the mayoral race has a primary in June. And as many of you know, Curtis Lewa is a leading Republican. And there seems to be a two-way race right now for the Democrats with the Muslim candidate who is anti Semitic and Andrew Cuomo. And of course, Eric Adams is independent. And people are asking me, who is Donald Trump supporting? And my answer is, I haven't spoken directly to the president, so I don't know. I can't tell you. But I could tell you to vote your conscience and vote who you think best supports your values. I'm lucky I live in Nassau County. I am not engaged in it. I can tell you to re-elect Bruce Blakeman as Nassau County Executive. I think many of you know him and know what he's done and stood up to Kathy Hochul. I wish so many other people around the country stood up to governors the way Bruce Blakeman has. And find out who's running in your local legislators because they're up, and your town supervisors locally. I guess the biggest races we really need to watch right now are the Virginia governor's race and the New Jersey governor's race. And a lot of people are asking who they should support in the New Jersey race. And my answer is it's really up to the people of New Jersey to decide. I can't tell them who to vote for and make a difference the same way that they can't tell me who to vote for in New York. There is a reason why Donald Trump makes the endorsements he does. I don't know. And I know that many people who support the America First Warehouse and have been guests on the show are supporting Bill Spadia. But I don't know either one of them, and I'm not involved in that. But whatever it is, it's your obligation to learn everything and find out everything. And here he comes. Joe the Box is coming on. Yeah. That's okay. You could share with me. You're going to tell us all the upcoming events because we actually had a guest had a technical difficulty. And it was our opportunity to talk together because if you want to talk about somebody who's a better Jew than a lot of Jews out there, it's Joe the Box. This guy supports everything I do. Every single day he'll call me and say, Cindy, what can I do to help the Jewish people? How can I get the hostages out of Gaza? You can use my moving storage business. By the way, anybody out there who is moving, don't move so fast, but if you have to move anything from storage to your home, changing the seasons, this is a guy, Joe the Box. Support patriot businesses. So tell us what's going on here because there's so much going on. I can't keep up with it.
Well, it's a little slow. The Memorial Day weekend, we really wanted to take the time and pray and think about these great men and women that gave their lives for us. We had a great guest on this morning, Michael Dowling, who had loaded the planes of the bodies as they came from all around the world. That was his job, his responsibility when they came in. I reminded him about the disgraceful act that Joe Biden did, looking at his watch when We were supposed to memorializing these guys. But the warehouse, I mean, listen, there's great things happening. I don't want to go down a bad road, but I'm going to tell you that I'm so proud to be an American these days. I love the way our great Donald Trump president is really taking the reins. He's doing his job like he said he was going to do. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel this whole movement about the anti-Semitism is the most disgraceful thing I've ever seen in my life. I cannot believe that there's people in our Congress or in our Senate or even in our state governments that don't have the America First heart. And to think that, that to kill the Jews is a rant that works, the River to Sea thing is just so despicable. They came, they attacked us. They destroyed us. They're the ones that started it. They are evil people, and no matter what you do or what you say, we're never going to change their minds. I believe that they have to be totally eradicated.
Should we give a little? I just found this out today. We are going to be in D.C. at a huge event on June 5th. We're going to be there together, and that's the only tease I'm going to say, but it's going to be something so patriotic. And it turns out he knows one person involved. I know another person involved because patriots stick together. Stay tuned to my social media and to his social media because we're going to give you the chance to be a part of something very special June 5th. That's all I can say. It's coming from D.C. I literally found out about it just before the show.
And I'm happy that you're going to be there with me because it is a spectacular opportunity. There are great patriots out there that love this country, and they're not afraid to put their money on the table when it comes to the America First movement. It's growing so fast.
And you know what's growing faster? The America First Warehouse Network of great podcasts. I can't believe how much this has grown. I'm so proud and honored to be a part of it.
Cindy, you've been beating my show by like 5,000 viewers. How you
I'm
doing
honored. I'm honored. I am honored.
Yeah, we're
Well-
happy to have you
Well,
very much.
it says a lot that you have actually put your money where your mouth is and put a show on hosted by a religious Jewish woman.
See you on the break. Do you do the breaks, Tim?